20 years now, where they go. 20 years now, I don't know. I sit and I wonder sometimes where they've gone. But sometimes late at night, when I'm bathed in the firelight, the moon comes calling in a ghostly way, and I recall. That's a verse from a song called Like a Rock by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, in case of you, any of you Zoomers who had never heard this song. I remember as a kid, me and my younger brother, we always loved this song. And what is it? We used to love that song, and I remember when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, this song was played during the Chevy truck commercials. You know, you'd see Silverados out there, Blazers, just raising hell out in the mud. There were some good truck commercials. This was in the early 90s, of course. You know, I hadn't heard that song in about 16 or 17 years until my phone just randomly played it. So I was driving home from work maybe a month or so ago. And it ties into what I've been thinking about lately, which is time and age. One of the things I don't see talked about too often is how the different races of this world, we all perceive time in a different fashion, in different ways. Our native European ancestors, the distant ones, pre-Christian, they viewed time as being more cyclical in nature. They viewed it as perhaps this was molded by their observation of the changing of seasons. And I mean, myself, I believe in reincarnation. I have more of a, what you could call a sort of pagan view of things. And when Christianity came to Europe and took hold, our people's view of time shifted. You're getting restless, ain't you? Our perception of time shifted due to Christianity, and I'm not going to blame this solely on Christianity, but this is something that I've put a lot of thought into lately, is how our now linear perception of time, the linear perception of time is more of a Levantine or Semitic view, a Semitic perception of time, compared to what we used to possess. I'm not going to blame Christianity solely, like I mentioned, for these things, but I've put a lot of thought into it. But I'll save that for a later time, a later date. Talk about that. I think it warrants a video of its own. But you know, I've thought a lot about aging. I mentioned that song a minute ago, how I hadn't heard it in 17, 16 years. In that song, the narrator, he's talking about how good and how strong he felt when he was 18 years old. And he's reflecting back how 20 years had passed. And I'm now at that stage, I reckon, in my life, you know. 20 years, I often wonder where it's went. But anyways, I'm going to get this young'un of mine in here to her mother. Walk down here in the woods and we'll talk a little more about this. Deer over there. Whitetail. Spike and 3 does. Spooked them a minute ago. Let's go over here. I was talking the other night to my friend Apollonian Germ on his live stream. We were talking about time. And he mentioned to me something that I've often been told in my life, and that is that I look a lot younger than I am. I suppose I get this from my dad, my father. He's 65, but he could easily pass for someone that's 50 to 55 years old. He's a man who's never really had any vices. Yet sadly, I've been a man of many vices myself. Oftentimes, I will say this, it feels like I have defied age. I am on the precipice of my late 30s. But physically, I've never felt better. Physically stronger than ever. My eyesight is outstanding. I had to take a physical recently for work. I have 20/10 vision in my right eye and I have 20/15 in my left eye. I've never broken a bone. Never seriously hurt myself. Never had to have surgery. And it's very rare that I ever go to a doctor for anything. But you know, I'm also reminded too that none of my grandparents, well, correct me, 3 out of 4 of my grandparents were dead before the age of 60. They had extremely rough lives. And my grandmother that lived the longest out of those 4, she only made it to 66. So, you know, I have no illusions of defying age. It comes for us all. And I've been thinking a lot lately about the difference between the young man and the old man. And I wanted to add too, I mentioned that I feel better than ever at this age. Because I truly do. Physically stronger, in better shape, very healthy. And you know, out of life, I'm getting what I want, and I'm getting what I need. I'm winning. And I'm going to keep winning. You know, if you get caught up too much in this online discourse, it's very easy to become discouraged with what you see going on in society around you today. But let me remind you this. With the current trajectory of things, just because everything around you is going to shit and in decline doesn't mean that you have to be in decline as well. In fact, if you just maintain, there's a decent chance on a long enough timeline you're going to come out on top. But I'm talking about winning. I also know what it is to lose. I've lost many things in my life. And we were talking about age a minute ago. With as much poison and narcotics as I put in my body for about 11 years or so, from my late teens till around the age of 31, I'm pretty sure I've shaved quite a few years off my life. I mean, after all, it's not good to do a bunch of dope and stay up for 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 days in a row. Methamphetamine was probably my most destructive vice that I ever possessed. And I've had many others as well. So I know what it is to lose. And I know what it is to not have what you need to get out of this life. You know, I was talking about age, the difference between the young man and the old man. And right now, at this moment, I feel like I'm in my absolute prime, and I have been for probably about 3 to 4 years now. And when you're at the top of the mountain, you want to stay up there as long as you possibly can. But what goes up, of course, must come down. And you know, one of the things I've realized about the difference between youth and the elder the things that come to my mind when I think about the young man is idealism. Young people are very idealistic. They are sometimes naive. They can be blinded by their idealism. They also crave adventure. They want to test themselves. And these are all normal, natural sort of desires. These are completely normal. I mean, 18 through 31, this was, well, even before that, basically from about the age of 14. 14 through the age of 31, this is how I was. You want to test yourself. You want to see if you have what it takes to persevere. And the young man is also impatient. This can be both a positive and it can also be a negative. Now the older man, or the elderly man, he learns to value security. He also learns patience. He learns wisdom through experience, through failure, both success and failure, and you can often learn more through failure than you can any success. He has wisdom, he values security, stability, and he also values friendship. Because, believe you me, over the years, like when I was a younger man, I had many friends. I was a pretty popular kid in high school. But you know, as you age, you drift apart. People follow their own life course. And then there are cases where people who are your friends will end up betraying you, or they may be taken from this mortal coil much too young. And I've seen both. So you learn to value friendship. And what I've come to see at the difference between the old man and the young man is, it is a case of pragmatism versus idealism. And I have witnessed this change in the almost 5 years that I've been producing stuff on this channel. I have witnessed that change occur in me. You know, when I jumped off the porch and dove into this back in, I guess, the summer of 2019, I had these grand illusions. I was very idealistic. And, you know, I thought that maybe this channel would lead to something, to lead to some sort of revolution in the minds and spirits of our people. And, as my friends have put it, we thought we were going to save the white race. But over these 5 years, I've seen just how dysfunctional and ridiculous some of the people are in these racialist communities. I've also seen a lot of stupidity play out. I really started to notice this about two and a half years ago, and I've seen so many things play out that I've came to realize that how idealistic I was, what a neophyte, how naive I was 4 or 5 years ago. I've learned to become more pragmatic, and I've had to temper my idealism. Because I've seen, as I mentioned, so many things play out that it can be quite discouraging sometimes. You know, I have witnessed this. And the same goes for the old man, comparing and contrasting him to the young man. The old man has realized that you can lose things. And another potential advantage that the old man has is he realizes that you have to cultivate things. Young men with our views, they want, total Aryan victory now. But the sad truth is, it doesn't work that way. You have to cultivate these things. And it takes patience. And it takes luck, and takes some divine inspiration. And you know, I've studied a lot of influential people throughout history. World leaders, national leaders, leaders in philosophy, sciences, many things. And what I've observed is that those who have shown the brightest in history, whose names live on, perhaps going back thousands of years, were the men who could balance pragmatism with idealism. You have to strike a balance. The old man knows that sometimes you have to compromise. The pragmatic man knows that sometimes compromises must be made, and that you might need to live to fight another day. But those who shone the best and the brightest throughout history were those who could do these things, yet they had the patience and the cunning to never take their eyes off of the ultimate prize. So that's what I've been thinking about lately. Age and time. Life's pretty good right now. Life's going good for me. And I hope it's going good for you guys as well. And it's like I mentioned earlier, just because everything's in a state of decline around you, just because everything is going to shit, doesn't mean that you have to throw up your hands and fall as well with it. You know, I mentioned a minute ago, that I've lost my damn train of thought. I'm trying to close this out real quick with something witty, but it seems to be eluding me right now. You know, it just came back to me. You know, I had this sort of naive view as like, and I've talked to other sort of content creators and people who may engage in activism and things like that. They approach this with that same idea that you're going to make a difference and that you're going to save our people. But the harsh truth is, our people have to learn to save themselves from themselves. This is just the harsh, bitter truth. And you come to realize that really, you're the only one that can save yourself. And perhaps if you're lucky, you can bring your family with you, you can bring your friends with you, and maybe you can bring your community with you, and you may even reach a few people who may not want to come along, but you can drag them against their will, kicking and screaming, with you. But that's all you can do. That's all you can do. I guess I'll make a video talking about our people's perception of time here soon, but it's about dinner time. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.